Mark chapter 2, we begin with the story that's in all three synoptics. That is a paralyzed boy who is let through the roof of a house. This can be a confusing story, but I think the Old Testament can help us out here. Sons, your sins are forgiven, and that causes the crowd to wonder, how can that be? Now, again, I think this is common sense. We don't think he's going to hell one minute, and now he's going to heaven. The scriptural story that we've been reading about all the way through from the Old Testament, you don't go to hell because of sin. You go to hell because of lack of loyalty. So he is not talking about, going to heaven here. What is he talking about? Go back to the Old Testament. That again will help us here. We have back in the stories of Leviticus and Numbers, commonly, a triangulation between the idea of cleansing, forgiveness, and atonement. And these three ideas all cleanse or solve a central idea, and we have seen this word before in Hebrew, kata. Now, kata, translated often as sin, kata is not sin, because you think of a world in which disease and sin can operate with the same word. It means to fail, to miss. And so it can often mean non-rebellious sins, even unavoidable sins like touching a carcass or having mold in your home. So what these words are rotating around is solving this. So again, remember in the Old Testament, you would never go to a sacrifice to ask forgiveness for murder or for idolatry. These are all solving something that is not rebellious in the sense of kata in that sense. So I think that's what he's getting at here. When someone heard this here, they're thinking of the Old Testament story of what a priest could do. And that's why when we come to this statement then in verse 7, who can do this but God? Let me in fact read from James Dunn. Anything James Dunn writes is worth our time. He says, to pronounce sins forgiven was already the prerogative of the priest in the sacrificial system. Only God could dispense with the authorized channels. But if he, God, authorized Jesus' disciples in turn, and remember that's exactly what happens in Matthew 18:18 and John 20:23, we have God giving, through Jesus can do it, but now also disciples, because Jesus gives them the authority to forgive sins. So this concept, let me finish it up. If God authorized Jesus' disciples in turn to forgive sins, that is presumably to be understood then as a rechanneling of authority from God, not as any usurpation of God's authority. So who can forgive sins but God alone? What they mean is that is a divine prerogative. Priests did that. Jesus was not a priest. He wasn't schooled in a priestly system, or a graduate, shall we say. And he thus did not have the privileges of a priest. That's what they were complaining about. And of course, what Jesus is saying is, in doing such, you can do this. In fact, I'm going to give my disciples that ability as well. This then is the context of 2:16 and 17. When the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with the tax collectors and sinners, they said to themselves, how is it that he eats and drinks with tax collectors and sinners? The quick answer is he forgave them their kata. So back to it, when he said your sins are forgiven in 2:5 to this person here, he also said back in 1:41, you are clean. Again, think of cleansing and forgiven as working the same way with sin. No, it's kata. It's disease in each case. What does that allow this boy to do? And what does that allow this leper to do is approach someone who in that society was clean. An unclean person could now approach a clean person because their kata was cleansed. Okay, so what he's simply doing is saying you are able to act as any other clean person in our society, and be like me or be like anyone else who is not in your situation of paralysis. That's what the issue was. So again, it's not an issue of going to heaven. It's an issue of approaching sacred space. Again, that idea we've talked about, but really it's just a matter of rejoining society as otherwise what they would have thought of to be an unclean person. One more thing, Jesus says, no one puts new wine into old wineskins. This is verse 22. Or else the new wine bursts the wineskins. The wine is spilled and the wineskins are ruined, but new wine must be put into new wineskins. I think what Jesus is saying here, and is clearly enigmatic, he doesn't, in fact, no gospel describes what he means by this strange idea. I think what he's saying is the story he's telling, or his story, his authority needs a new meta-narrative to be put into place. You can't fit me in to the story that you're telling. That's what he's saying. You have got to start over. Go to the Old Testament, figure out what God was always about, the old wineskin, if you want to call it that, and fit the old wine into the old wineskin, or in this sense, the new wine into the new wineskin. You cannot fit me into the story that's in your head. It allows him then at the very last verse of chapter 2 to say, I am the Lord of the Sabbath, which again, even more than what we've done here, probably brought the people to just the shock-filled idea that a human could be in charge of the one day that God alone had put into play way back in Genesis 2.